Ashley Gordon, welcome. You've finally pinned you down.
That's taken a while. Finally got here.
You're loving life at the moment?
Loving life, yeah.
What are you up to? I mean, I know that you do a little bit of, I suppose with rugby league, you're still doing a bit of work with the Butcher Boys?
Yeah, I'm a pathways coach over there, so basically working with teams from under 15s right through to seniors.
Yep.
So Saturdays most of the time watching our juniors play, and Sundays and afterwards is usually watching the seniors play. And then most nights I'm at a central field watching and training with coaches.
You've been doing that for a few years now. How long's that?
I coach Reggie's for a couple of years, just for a bit of fun and keep me busy. But look, if I'm not coaching, I wouldn't be doing much at home. So it's my hobby. It gives me some quality time of putting back, and I've coached at Central since my youngest son was 9. So I've been over there for a good part of 17 years.
Yeah. Is it some sort of enjoyment you get from seeing a young bloke coming through the ranks and climbing?
Yeah, well, watching those boys all the way through their, juniors, sub-juniors, into our senior ranks. So you're talking about, well, the obvious one is Kurt Donahue, who was my halfback all them times, and he's at the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at local players who are playing first grade, like Lockie O'Brien and Tyler Doney,
Yeah.
There's a few boys playing first grade locally, and then most of my team I coach in under 14s, probably more than half of them are still at Central playing seniors.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Central Charlestown. It's always been a battlers club, but you're up against clubs that are spending a lot of money, aren't they? And you're sort of making do with what you got, which can be hard, but also rewarding if your fruits of your labour.
It's a tough one, the club Central itself, because you're relying on our only junior club or a feeder club is like the Dudley Magpies.
Yep.
So if you haven't got Dudley and Central juniors, if they're not doing well, your seniors wouldn't be doing well. So we have to invest a lot of time in our juniors at both clubs. Other clubs have the luxury of having 4, 5, 6 junior clubs they can call on. And with the Newcastle Rugby League's point system, every player that comes to your club that's not from your nursery, they come with lots of points.
Yeah.
So you have to put into your juniors so that when they come through, there's 0 points for your senior squad. Do
you feel like it's a little bit of an uneven playing field?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for many clubs, like Curry in particular. They've just got Curry juniors, so they don't have any clubs that they can call on within their nursery.
Mm-hmm.
So they're relying on players coming to their club, and and that comes with points. So it's something I think the league has to have a look at, just to help some clubs out who don't have a lot of juniors.
Yep.
Particularly if you're going to put a point system in place. You can't expect. What was happening with me was playing players in reserve grade from your 19s that weren't up to it.
Yes.
Because there's 0 points, you play them.
Yep.
If they come with lots of points, you can't fit them in. So what happens is you're playing players who aren't ready and they're at risk of getting hurt.
Yep.
And then I had players, grown men, who couldn't play because they had too many points. So I don't know if you want when you talk about even playing field. Yeah, but the last thing I want is to hurt junior players. So in the end, I was playing games with 2 and 3 reserves and not grabbing any kids from 19s.
Yeah, because from your experience, when a kid's not ready.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and they should not be playing senior footy locally because it's a good quality standard. So our 19s, a lot of them, they're taking a big step from 17 to playing 19s, and that's a big step, and some aren't ready. There's a huge gap amongst our 19s comp at the moment. There's some very, very good teams and teams down the other end, and we want to try and keep those players in our game, and if they're not ready and capable and not up to it yet, then there's the risk of them walking, not being part of rugby league. So we've got to make sure that when they come into 19s, they can handle that level. Because the level is good. It's good quality. And so that's why if you're not playing first division and under 15s, under 16s, under 17s, then you'll jump to senior footy is much harder. Yeah. And that's where at risk of losing players.
But being at the Butcher Boys for so long, they've ever said in the Reggie's coach, go, mate, you need to throw the shorts on, mate. Ever go on?
Yeah, no chance of that.
Bring the boots.
If I was going to do it, I'd play halfback. I wouldn't be playing on the wing or fullback. You know, try and play in a dinner suit.
Did you ever play in the Koori knockout?
Yeah, played all the time. We won a knockout in '87
Yeah.
in Newcastle All Blacks.
Great initiative, wasn't it? You know, and it's still going strong to this day.
Well, the year we won the knockout was the year the Knights started training.
Wow.
In 1987, in that off season.
Yeah.
So '87 was a good year for me. But I support the Newcastle All Blacks, Newcastle Yowies, and the Newcastle Emus locally.
And some good talent in there going around. Like it's top notch. Just on what you're doing work-wise away from sport, what are you up to now? Because I know we're going to get into some of the things you've done, but what's currently at the coalface for you?
I manage a service called Gambleware Aboriginal Service. So we support all the providers around New South Wales who are providing gambling counselling or financial counselling in their local area. So my role is to help them engage Aboriginal communities, but in turn also working with Aboriginal communities to engage their services. Yeah. So, you know, and I've been in this industry now well over 27 years, so, you know, I enjoy it. I like it. Coming from school teaching, it's still very rewarding helping people gain support. Yeah. But also there's a lot of education around, you know, beware of the harms, you know, gamble safely, bet in moderation, all those sort of things. There's still a large education component to it, which I enjoy.
So in regards to that, I mean, you work with more than 200 Aboriginal communities around Australia. They'd be, I suppose, like you mentioned, but it'd be rewarding, but I suppose disturbing at the same time because you're seeing people go through these things that probably they shouldn't have to go through.
Yeah, and the landscape in Australia has changed. Yeah. Like, you're talking about the increase in poker machines that's caused so much devastation to families, and particularly, you know, low-income families and people already living in poverty and unemployment. So most gambling occurs in poor socioeconomic communities, and a lot of those are Aboriginal communities. So when I visit those areas, even remote areas all around Australia, if it's not pokies that's destroying, then it's card playing. It's many forms. It's online gambling. So we just got to again teach community of the dangers and the pitfalls, and you know what I mean. Even something as simple as making sure if you're going to gamble that they're regulated websites. Yeah, you know what I mean. So. See what I'm saying? There's education with everything we do. Because for me, it's not about telling people what to do and what's right and what's wrong, but giving them knowledge and information so then they can make their own decisions. And that's what self-determination is you allow people to make their own choices. And if you can give them the proper guidance and support, you know, we'll be better off for it.
You mentioned different forms of gambling. In the Aboriginal community, what's probably the highest percentage? Is it pokies? Or?
Yeah, majority of people in counselling, you're talking about 68% of people are poker machine problems. Yeah. You know, these are all obviously in New South Wales I'm talking about. So most people live in Sydney, you know, Newcastle, Wollongong, and then you're looking at those large regional areas that you know, take a lot of income from people. We're just trying to obviously work with industry about let's work together on, you know, if you're going to have an ad on telly and you know and you talk about gamble responsibly, let's unpack that, let's teach more, let's throw a bit more substance behind it, but also for me we've got to make sure our communities, particularly our young people, they're growing up in a nation where they feel gambling's part of the culture, and I just think that's wrong.
Well, just staying with that, just obviously in your sport, rugby league, I mean, how do you feel when you see these sports, you know, agencies coming on advertising, you know, and sometimes the actual panel is talking about the bet, saying, "Oh, you know, it's 6 points. I'll take the Dragons, you know, given a 6 point start." You know, like things like it's almost like it's becoming ingrained, a part of the sport.
And that's the issue I'm talking about in regards to, you know, why can't rugby league just stay alone? You know what I mean? No, we've got initiatives around Reclaim the Game, which is all about let's just talk about the game, nothing else. You know what I mean? So when gambling comes part of that, and I think we're missing the opportunity. Well, if sports betting agencies want to be part of our game, let's work together on how we can decrease harm. You know what I mean? How we can make people more informed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because there's no point taking all the sponsorship dollars and not putting enough back in communities.
Because that's the hard thing too. Again, you know, like clubs, the NRL, that probably take sponsorship from betting agencies, and it's almost like two-edged sword. It's almost like they don't want to promote it, but that's where they're tapping into the money.
Yeah, no, I've done a survey on NRL players. The statistics are scary, but I think we can do better across the board with education of our NRL players.
Yeah,
any young fella, any adolescents, any teenage boys now. I've seen the issue now with teenage boys and girls is online gambling on poker machines.
Yeah,
that's grown unbelievably in the last 3 years.
You mentioned players. Are you saying that players actively bet on games?
No, not on games, but just in general. Poker machines and so on. So, and we found that the reason why players like doing it is to escape and get away.
Yeah.
And when you've got a bit of money, you can feel that this is a habit that I don't mind doing. It's a bit of fun, a little bit of excitement. It gets me away from the limelight.
Yeah.
But the habit can turn into an addiction, and that's when we see the problem. So we have to, again, educate our players on the pitfalls of this habit can get out of control. And if it's something's out of your control, it's an addiction.
Is it like trying to keep your mind active but not in that way?
Yeah. Like we all know players love PlayStations and online, gaming. But again, what's it teaching players? You know what I mean? And for me, gaming is getting very much closely linked to gambling these days.
Just getting back, we're going to talk about obviously when you started with the Knights, but around that time there were still part-time players. I mean, I remember going to a job and Robbie McCormack was a carpenter, and I had to pull up some carpet. He had to fix the floor. And the next, I think the next week he was playing State of Origin. Do you think that sometimes, I mean, now that they're full-time professionals, it's sort of we built this into them that you're a football player, and it leaves them with nothing else, as well as skills as well. Is that another thing you look at sort of implementing to say that there has to be a life after football, which is important?
I think the best coaches are aware of that. So your Bellamy's and your Wayne Bennett's understand there's something else outside the bubble. I mean, I think players can be too much caught up in the bubble and not experiencing enough things outside. And they'll grow values from this, and they'll grow up, they'll mature quicker, what I mean? And they'll get it more, they'll get life more. But, while you're living in that bubble and it's all about footy and it's all about me and everything's done for me and, everybody's there for you, there's not enough about you providing and doing something else outside your bubble, which is about, putting back and knowing that there's something bigger and better outside of yourself and rugby league.
Did you, in your era, did you see players fall through the cracks?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, all the time. So, rugby league players are no different to the wider community. And the fact that players get stressed, people deal with challenges, anxiety, deal with relationships. And then the issues around alcohol and people not dealing well with becoming a role model, and people getting that limelight. Not everyone gets it and understands it. So what do they choose to deal with it? Some choose alcohol, some might use drugs, some will gamble. Yeah.
Just to stay back on the pokies again, you'd be happy that the state premier, Chris Minns, is looking to take a tougher stance on pokey reforms.
Yeah, we just want to see some substance behind that, like little things from just putting a freeze. I think we've got enough. I don't want clubs to become mini mini casinos, and our pubs actually look like clubs. Let's get back to where they originally were designed, which is all, to me, pubs they were customer service based. They were about playing pool, playing darts, very socially minded. But these days, you go to a pub these days, it looks like a little club, and you got that many poker machines, and no one's talking and no one's interacting. Staff aren't interacting as much as they used to with patrons. So I think we've lost our way a little bit. And the other way of doing this is more education to those patrons.
Also, I mean, the statistics is that just in New South Wales alone, $1.1 million going through poker machines an hour. It's just in New South Wales, when we're the highest contributor to pokies just here in New South Wales, in Australia.
Yeah, we're number one in the world for gambling losses per capita. So why would Australians want that statistic? So we gamble more per person, per capita, than any other country in the world. Like, I don't know why we sit back and just think this is normal, and that's what I fear. Young people think it's normal. It's not normal, and I'm not saying throw them out. I'm just saying we've got to come up with a plan to make it, where young people in particular aren't getting unhealthy habits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're having problems with gambling all through their adulthood.
I think also too. I mean, I know of a pub in Newcastle. I won't say obviously name it. I don't want to get in trouble again. That at 10:30 at night, there's people in the public bar, and if there's even just one person playing the pokies in the gaming room, that pub stays open until that one person leaves, and then 1 o'clock is the time where they actually have to close up. But these people can keep drinking till 1 o'clock if that one person's in there. But if that person left at 10:30, everyone's closed. It's closed.
Yeah.
One person can make that difference.
Yeah.
It's just, I find it obscene.
Yeah, and it's really hard because there's a responsible service of gambling, legislation and policy that clubs got to uphold. I've got to make it clear, it's very hard to pick someone who's struggling with gambling, what I mean? So, and it's okay to gamble. Like I said, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that it's wrong and people shouldn't do it. And it's very hard to help those, though, who are sitting there and might be playing. So, that's why we've got to be, for the people who run venues, be aware that some people may not be finding it fun anymore.
Yeah.
And then it's more desperation. It's more dealing with pain and trauma, dealing with loss. So they're the ones we've got to be sure that if they're playing there for long periods of time, we've got to ask and see if we can help them and support them. I'll give you one story. I was at a venue once where it was a club and you weren't, the whole part of the club was closed, bar the pokey room. So if you wanted to stay in that venue, you had to go sit in the pokey room. So
And then they wheel out spring rolls and...
So you couldn't sit in anywhere else in the club. I'm thinking, that's a bit rich.
When you identify someone, say from the Aboriginal community, who is addicted, what's the step? What's the procedure? How do you somehow help or wean that person off?
I think first of all it's about working with the individual first and seeing how they're feeling and what they want. I'm a bit pretty much about they got to drive what they want to do from here on. I will give them options. You know what I mean? And obviously the local gambleware provider in their town or in their city would be the number one choice. But again, for most people, that are making this decision, I want to mentor them and support them and make sure that they're not alone. So if they need to ring me and talk to me about what they're going through, that's okay. But ultimately, I've got to try and find them a local service in their area. Yeah. So that's the free and the confidential services around gambling counsellors and financial counsellors.
What actually got you into this? Did they come to you, or was it something you wanted to do? Was it?
I was teaching here in Newcastle. Yeah. And I got approached to run gambling counselling services here in Hunter Street. Yep. And I said, give it a go. I took 12 months leave from teaching to do it, just to see where it would take me. Yeah, and I didn't leave. But through that period, though, I found that Aboriginal people weren't seeking services. Like there was a real challenge around why people weren't going and asking for help. So then I went out and worked with Southern Cross University and then Central Queensland Uni about doing some research in the Aboriginal community. So that took me all around Australia, working with different communities, gathering information and data and coming back and then writing that all up into a program where I think is the best way to tackle the issues around problem gambling in communities, and also working with the services and what they need to be wary of. Yeah. We've come from this real clinical model, which is all about, addictions and brain disorders, and I felt like not everybody fits in that category. So we've got to look at people's, self-esteem and self-worth and where they've come from, their education, maybe their financial literacy skills, understanding money and budgeting and so on. So there was a lot more to it than just, mate, you've got a brain disorder. Yeah. So we come from that health model where I feel now we've got it right. So it's a real public health approach. And we're trying to also work with people who are at risk, or they're moderate gamblers, or they're just your weekly gamblers. So we've got to make sure we keep them, weekly gamblers or making sure that they don't head down that path.
Well, I was just about to say too, I mean, part of that data would it be, once you get them off, it's keeping them off and probably Yeah, because again, peer pressure, when you're in a community where there's other people that do it, it'd be quite easy to fall off the wagon and go back into that.
Yeah, it's so difficult for people to stop, and and then we go back to our original conversation. What if someone was trying to stop and they wonder what's the footy?
Yeah.
Up comes the betting. Up comes someone telling me about who's paying what, and so for people who are trying to stop in New South Wales, it becomes very difficult because gambling ads and gambling advertising is always in our face.
It's one. I found this out a few weeks ago. I know a fellow that runs a club in the Hunter, and he said, "Look," he said, "I don't like what's happening." He said, "But I work for this organisation. It's part and parcel. If we take the pokies out, these people will still just go down the road to the next place or the next place or the next place." But the one thing that really stood out, he said, there was a lot of old people that came to this club, and they get there at 10 o'clock, all walks of life, all races. And they don't want to get off their poker machine to the point where they wear adult nappies under their clothes. So, one, they don't want to lose their machine, or two, if they're on a winning streak, they don't want this winning streak to finish. I find that it blows my mind.
Yeah. I'd imagine everyone who's listening and everyone who wants to talk about gambling would know someone with similar stories. And this is where I think in this country we've missed out on the opportunity. Well, how do we support people? How do I approach someone? Because at some stage we have to ask ourselves a question: is it a health problem or is it a financial problem?
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't talk to them because I don't want to tell them what to do with their money. What you do with your money is your choice.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's a financial issue. But what if it's causing mental health issues? What if my gambling is from having a mental health disorder?
Well, I was just going to say that, you joined the National Suicide Prevention Trial Evaluation Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Subcommittee. You'd actually see the fallout of the addiction to suicide, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So, it's taken a while for people to realise that gambling can impact mental health, you know what I mean? And drug and alcohol dependency, always closely linked to gambling, but what we're not talking about is suicide. You know what I mean? So gambling has a close link, and gambling debt, and the problems associated with gambling and its relationship with suicide. It's frightening. You know what I mean? We need to talk about gambling as how it impacts from a health, perspective, rather than throwing it out there as it's just a financial problem.
What would be the worst case study that you've encountered?
Just going to a community knowing that someone had committed suicide, and it's written off at suicide and an argument, but when you talk to the family and you talk to the people who know the person, it was because of the gambling.
You dig a bit deeper.
When you dig deeper, it's more the gambling. And there's so many people now in debt, and with the cost of living, gambling's even become more of something to go to.
Yep.
We see a lot of people seeing financial counsellors, particularly in the country, when the cost of living is really high.
Yep.
So what are they doing to deal with their depression or their mental health? What are they hoping for when they go and gamble? So, there's lots of reasons why people gamble, but also, we're not talking enough as mental health professionals and the relationship to gambling. Yeah. No one screens for it.
Yeah.
Tell me a GP, a doctor who talks about gambling to their patients. So we're not even doing it at that level. Yeah. So when we're sitting down with someone who presents or might be doing a health screen, and we need to screen and talk about, is gambling causing you problems?
So do you feel that most of these problems are usually being caught at the person's worst and not while they're doing it? It's almost like they've got to be at their worst ebb to actually go, we need to do something now.
Yeah, that's the saddest part of my work. I don't want to wait for someone to hit rock bottom. We have to stop people from heading towards being rock bottom, right? That's the percentage of people where it's out of control. They don't know how to stop. They might need medication. They might need to see a professional, see a psychologist, whatever. What about the other 60% who play and gamble regularly? You know what I mean? So we need to ensure those people, and that's thousands and thousands of people. We've got to make sure that they are aware of the dangers and they keep it a healthy habit.
How many people do you think that you've saved?
Couldn't count because I say this a lot to all the people I work with along the way. It's like, tell me what an intervention is. What does that look like? You know, we've got to get away from the medical model where it's a 1 hour session talking to a therapist. It could be a 10-minute yarn with a person at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
It could be someone that you meet at an ADOC day and you have a yarn to. It could be someone that you talk in the street. If someone wants to unload and unpack their problems and share something really meaningful to you, and that conversation becomes really important for that individual to share and for you to listen and you to provide support and guidance, that's an intervention. And we need to learn to do that better as Australians.
And also in the Aboriginal community, they're very proud people that probably don't want to share problems. And that's another thing to try and crack open that to get them to want to open up.
Yeah, well, you see all the initiatives now, Talk to Me Bro, and all these wonderful initiatives where we should be able to go up to someone and say, how you going?
Yeah.
You're all right, brother. You know what I mean? Are you okay, sis? So I think we have to be better at asking someone if they're okay.
At Elk Architecture, we don't just design buildings, we shape the spaces where life happens. From concept to construction, our award-winning architects bring our vision to life with precision, passion and purpose. Whether it's your dream home or your next big commercial project, trust Elk Architecture to build what matters most. Elk Architecture, designed for life, built for the future.
In the world of construction, precision isn't optional, it's essential. For over 35 years, Newcastle Sheet Metal has delivered high-quality ductwork, fabrication and installation on time, every time. From large-scale commercial projects to precision custom work, we don't just meet deadlines, we set the standard. Newcastle Sheet Metal, built on experience, driven by quality.
Everyone deserves the chance to live life their way. At Connectability, they support people with disabilities to build confidence, independence, and real connections in their community. With allied health services and capacity building supports for children and adults, they help people develop the skills they need to grow, learn, and thrive. From daily living and community participation to NDIS support coordination and supported independent living. Connectability is there to help you achieve your goals, dreams, and aspirations. Connectability, supporting people, strengthening communities.
Who was your biggest role model, Aboriginal role model growing up?
My parents, obviously, number one,
Sure.
because of the decision to leave a country town to then run an Aboriginal boys' hostel here in Newcastle. You know what I mean? Professionally, you know, there was a gentleman, I'll have to say, is Ray Kelly, who was a local man here in Wabikal and Newcastle, who I looked up to and found a connection to him where I really respect his knowledge and the values that he stands for, and that comes way back. But he was someone who probably helped me when I was in my 30s, you know what I mean, and kind of how do I want to be perceived as a leader and how do I want to be perceived in the community. So, but I had some wonderful elders and wonderful relatives in Brewarrina growing up, you know what I mean, that I stayed connected with, and that's probably where I'm most grounded. And then you got my brother who, you know, you had to share a room with your whole life. Obviously there's going to be a connection there, and I learned a lot from, and he probably doesn't know it, but yeah, I mean, those people all mould you. And then you look at your coaches you had.
Yeah.
One of my best friends is the coach I had all through my teenage years. So I still see him every weekend. So he's my coach.
That would have been the Cardiff days?
Yeah, Cardiff days. When I played, you know, under 13s and 14s and 15, that coach is still one of my best mates. And I mean, the first bloke I met in Newcastle, he's still one of my best friends.
Wow.
First fellow I met in Newcastle when I moved here. So there's a lot of special people that's probably moulded me along the way.
Yeah. Well, with those people, I mean, was that the big reason why you wanted to dedicate your life to like Aboriginal leadership?
I think where it started for me was at an Aboriginal coaching clinic in Morpeth. It was the first one of its kind, and Wayne Pearce came.
Right.
And it was my first, like, wow, look at a player who, and he was a PE teacher at the time. Funny enough, that's what I wanted to be, a PE teacher. But he was big on this no alcohol, you know what I mean, squeaky clean, healthy life, healthy living. Mum and Dad didn't drink, didn't smoke, so I kind of felt, well, I should do the same, you know what I mean? So all through
he used to bake his own bread.
all through nights, I never touched alcohol, and I was that, even though I wouldn't say my body was the best. It was a bit of a string bean, you know, it's a bit of a pretzel. But I know that I wanted to be a role model, and I learned that quite early, that, you know, people's perceptions of you is very important, and there's an element there how I wanted to change people's lives by putting back.
Do you feel that your profile as an NRL player sort of helped you open doors to start conversations that otherwise probably wouldn't open?
Oh, for sure. And players got to realise it. You need to leverage the profile. You need to leverage the status you have. But how you do that is up to you. You know what I mean? And you need to find something that resonates with you, that you're passionate about. Yeah. You know, because to me, you do have a responsibility. Like, if people are going to look up to you, then give back. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't be there for a lot of people. And I think it has to start to sit better with our current players, because a lot of them aren't disconnected. They're disconnected to the society, and that's why I take my hat off to Latrell Mitchell, because all he does is put back. You know what I mean? He's always outside the bubble. He's always putting back. He always goes back to my hometown of Brewarrina, even though he's from Taree. So Latrell is well-rounded, you know what I mean? He understands his mission and what he values most. We just need more people like that.
I think the first time I interviewed Latrell was, I think it was his first State of Origin camp, and he was playing for the Roosters then. And I walked away going, what an impressive young man. And again, I even that Roosters, the way Trent Robinson, he not only makes good players, he makes good men. And that was just like a prodigy of what he can produce. And he was just so well-mannered. But on the other hand too, I mean, I was the Channel 10 NRL reporter for like 4 years. I started to really hate it because of the attitudes of players. It's almost, you'd rock up and it was like they just hated it. And you're sort of going, well, you know, it's part of the game. You like the fame, you know, we have to be here, you know. I don't want to ask the questions, but it was almost like this disdain. But then there were some players like a Latrell, like I could even name, you know, some even like the Morris twins. They just brought up decent people.
Yeah, and look at Joel Thompson and the work he does these days. So there's so many people doing meaningful things, you know. I mean, so at the end of the day, people have to find what fits for them. Not everybody, you know, has the energy or the motivation like a Latrell. If you, that's okay, but have something that you can do that's meaningful and start putting back. And before I forget, I can't forget one of my other great mentors, Keith Onslow, who was the Knights' first development officer. So he used to coach against me all through those years, teenagers, and so I think he helped the Knights spot me in the early years. But Keith and I became development officers, and then we became international development officers. So I actually worked with him in Cook Islands and Fiji and Tonga, and we'd go over there doing coaching clinics with the men and going to schools during the day. So I got really to know him, and the values he stood for kind of resonated as well. So Keith had a big role in how I perceive myself to be and want to be, but also the element of how to teach rugby league, like the values of teaching rugby league, like about the fun factor, the well-rounded person, like you said, and you know, all those things about respect and honesty and reliability and punctuality. Like Keith put that, you know, at the forefront of everything we did. Wow. So he taught me a lot of special characteristics as well. Just
staying on that, I mean, as we know, Papua New Guinea's, you know, coming into the NRL. Do you feel, you know, you've been in these Pacific nations, that there's a lot of untapped talent there that could really play a part? I mean, a lot of those islands were predominantly rugby union codes, you know.
It's going to be difficult, because I'll explain my journey too. Is when people come to you when they're raw, like this natural talent, you know, and then you try to put them into a system, you know what I mean, where it's based around structure, particularly the way we play, you know what I mean, the way we do things, even training. So there's going to be some teething, and there's going to be some issues around and challenges for that. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I think you're going to have a lot of players who can play off the cuff, got natural skills, natural ability, but it's about harnessing that into the type and style of coach you want to be, because you've got to coach to what you have, not the style that you have. And so I think there'll be some challenges early on, but I'm hoping the players they get, like Jerome Luai and others,
Yep.
you know what I mean, it could be a fast-tracked education for those players.
Do you feel when you were a player, you sort of did what you wanted to do on the field too, didn't you? You sort of just...
But I got in trouble for
like
it.
a free spirit.
Yeah. I remember one of the first games I chip kicked off the kickoff. And I got tackled just before the try line, but the dummy half scored, just jumped over him because there was no one there, and they just scored a try. So we were coming back, patting each other on the back. And our trainer, Mark Wright, came on and said, if you do that again, you're off. You know what I mean? So I was not allowed to chip kick off the kickoff. Don't know why.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of things I did that were just backyard sort of footy, but that's the way I enjoyed it. And, you know, we went through a period of, let's get really, really structured, highly structured.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until Andrew and Matty Johns came back in 95 for me, or that period, 94, 95, 96, where it's more creativity, more off the cuff, you know what I mean? More around what we had in our team, and let's bring it to the forefront and bring their skills up. You know what I mean? Because I know that the players that won that grand final in 97, Andrew and Matt in particular, got the best out of those players with the shapes and the styles of footy. So your players really, I won't say owe a lot, but those two players in particular, you know, assisted the brand and the type of footy you wanted to play. But without the tough boys, I get that. You know, your Chiefs and Butsy and so on, and even Sarge and all those guys who laid the foundation around a tough forward pack. It was still the style of play that kind of won us that grand final.
You're probably saying, hang on, how come they're not getting in trouble for doing chip kicks off the first half?
I know. Yeah, I said I was doing that years ago.
I just want to say, before we get into your Knights, I just want to talk about racism. As a player, were you exposed to it a lot?
Yeah. I got a bad one. I could remember clearly. Western suburbs. And then it was that bad that to the point where he then wanted to come home and shake my hand at the end of the game. I said, go away, I can't stand. No way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it happened a lot, like it was enough in the game. There wasn't enough education around that. And my opinion on all of this is he a racist, or is he uneducated, therefore he's ignorant? He doesn't know what offends. Yeah. So I'd like to get to know the context in which things are said, you know what I mean? Because some people may not know, you know, that unconscious bias on the values and what they're trying to push forward. When then there's clear racism. Was that like local footy? No, that was first grade footy. Wow. So it wasn't too bad local footy, to be honest with you. I don't remember it in my first year of first grade at South Newcastle. Yep. But I always try to ignore it. Like I said, it didn't happen a lot, but when it did, it kind of surprised me more than anything. So I think there was a small period where we jumped on it fairly early in the 90s. Yeah. You know, but I'm glad the league jumped on top. But you know, all these people who say, you know, what happens on the field stays on the field. You still got to be careful. So if that person's a racist or he's uneducated, we still got to get to him. Can't just leave it on the field. You know, we've got to educate those players. But there would have been, you know, teammates, if they would have heard something, they'd go, oh, but they've got to know, you know. And we've got to educate the others. So at the end of the day, we've got to educate people so they can call it out, and then they can pull up their friends. You know, even you're at a barbecue, you know, maybe someone's talking out of school, pull them up, tell them they're wrong, and that's not correct, and we can stop racism. Do you feel it's still rife in the community now? Has to be. Didn't you see the referendum? The referendum, yeah. You know, so at the end of the day, though, I think most people are still uneducated over what Aboriginal people really want. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, we're not trying to have all this control. We just want to have a voice. You know what I mean? We just want to be consulted on certain important issues, and that, You know what I mean? At least parliamentarians still make the decisions, but I can't see why people are afraid of a voice or people playing a role and being consulted.
Do you think it was politicised so much that's the thing that strangled it in the end?
Yeah. Misinformation.
Yeah.
You know, then you got people speaking out of school about what it was and what it would do.
Yeah.
Load of rubbish. And I still remember when the Land Right Acts came in, people were scared of their homes being taken. That's misinformation, and people start thinking drastically that things are going to change for them. It's not. You know, so we need to be better informed before we go to a vote.
Well, I was about to say, do you think there would ever be another one, or do you just feel that it'd be a waste of time, we just need to do it differently?
Yeah, it's just a waste of time, waste of money now. They won't do it a second time. But again, we've got to work out what works in Parliament, you know what I mean, and find a better way, because it's always two parties. Now Pauline's getting her party in, and all of a sudden they're sitting back and you can all listen to some of her policies. But you know, maybe she's changing some of their attitudes and some of the policies that they have, because people are starting to listen to her. So I do like to think I have more of a balanced input in Parliament rather than have two strong parties.
Sure. It's quite a situation out in Western Australia at the moment, the removal of the Nikki Winmar statue. I think we've got that, Brody, as well. And that held significance. Now, that statue depicts one of the most important moments in AFL, or some may say Australian sports history, which particularly contributed to the introduction of the Code's anti-vilification laws. Nikki was also he was found guilty of assaulting a woman. Your thoughts, actually, because it's almost like, God, you feel like he's let it down, because that was such a synonymous thing he did that day that was obviously replicated in that statue, and now he's put himself in that position.
It would have divided a lot of supporters, you know what I mean, because he did play a special place in our sporting history by doing what he did, you know, being proud of the colour of his skin. But, you know, doing something wrong, like hitting a woman, you know what I mean, then it just changes everything. So it's very difficult, and sadly, you know, sport and politics shouldn't mix, but they do.
What were you like as a PE teacher?
I loved it. I love being outside. I enjoyed all sports, you know, so I could teach, you know, cricket, tennis, you name it, anything, volleyball. You know, I could teach gymnastics, and I could demonstrate all of the above, gymnastics and trampolining.
It sounded like you had fun doing it.
Oh well, I was active, and you know, I really enjoyed it. And then throw in the fact that I love health, you know what I mean. So teaching kids about nutrition and their bodies and bones and muscles, and then my favourite subject was teaching them about the Olympics and the history of the Olympics. Like, there was a lot of really special subjects that kind of I wanted to, you know, share with the students. So teaching was great. I loved it. You know, it just got to the point where we were probably over documenting everything that we did, to the point where, you know, it didn't. You know, I just wanted to be out working with the children rather than writing reports and documenting everything that we did in every lesson.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, I'm probably not as active as I'd like to be, but back in the day, you know, I could handle any of those students in any of those subjects, and would compete and play. You know what I mean? So I love being to the point where I was, you know, I like being active. So obviously a little bit less active now, and I probably couldn't demonstrate, you know, a double somersault, or, you know what I mean, anything quality. So I would still enjoy it, but I think the system's changed. I think the education department's changed, and really, you know, I drive past schools now, and their lessons aren't the lessons I used to do and used to see. You know what I mean? I see kids lining up 10 people in a line. It's just not. That's not teaching. You know, there's no skill development. We're missing that special element that PE was for me in health, and sometimes we're just babysitting.
Just in regards to the NRL, the way it is now to the way it was when you were playing, stop, start, cameras at every angle. Do you enjoy it?
I'll always enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, whether the bunker get things wrong, it doesn't matter. I'm a passionate rugby league follower. You know what I mean? State of Origin last night was unbelievably good to watch. People can talk about the bunker and things, but you know the 6 again rule and all the new rule changes. But you're going to have to make some drastic changes for me not to like the game.
Yeah.
So I do still like it, I still like coaching, and I love the women's game. I really do. The way the women's play, particularly local footy.
Yeah.
Mate, I think it's great for the game, and I think people should sit down and watch what these girls are doing, because it's just raw talent. They're not always playing this super structured game of footy. So if you like the old school type of footy, get down to your local footy oval.
It's funny, I flicked onto YouTube a couple of weeks ago, and an old game came up. It was like 1980, a KB Cup semi-final, and you watch it. I think it was Parramatta and West, and Parramatta had Arthur Beetson playing. I think it was his final year.
Yeah.
He was playing for Parramatta.
81, wasn't it?
Or 80. So that same year he played for the State of Origin for Queensland at the age of 35. But it was a lot slower. But I actually looked at it and went, geez, I enjoyed that better than what I watched on the weekend. I don't know why. It's just forward passes were penalised for deliberate forward passes. Now you see so many forward passes that just go through the net.
Yeah, I could watch old games. Like my son, who I've coached, for 20 odd years, he didn't like watching old footy games.
Yeah.
So it's not for everybody, but I really like watching, those games in the 70s and particularly the 80s. But it's amazing how young fellas, they don't go on and watch them.
Well, I was going to say the athleticism by players. When you see wingers flying, I think we've got a couple of pictures too. Flying, you think it's just like next level. No, that was a head injury. We've got a couple of players.
Oh, jeez.
We're going through these.
Well, that's me there, and that's Coach behind.
That's the Cardiff boy.
That's the Cardiff boy, yeah. Yeah, special days. That's Brewarrina, yeah, under 9s. And that teacher there, I still have a cup of tea with. So that's a long time ago. Mr. Bennett, never forget Mr. Bennett.
Look at that. Look at the football. It's nearly the size of you.
Well, we played full field, with the full-size footy.
Big leather ball.
With the big leather ball. So, yeah, back in them days, tuck it under, run around. But, yeah, and we've lost a few in that photo, like people who've passed away, but I'm still friends with them all.
What was it like growing up in Brewarrina?
Best thing ever. We loved our footy, and we'd get down and watch every team, support every team. And people really got to understand connection, you know what I mean, where you've grown up, and understand your childhood and who played a role in you as a child, and, who moulded you in the way that you have, and who instilled these values. I mean, that all comes from your upbringing,
Yeah.
Yes, we throw a lot to the parents, but, mate, look at that coach. He was brilliant. I still remember him, and like I said, we still have cups of tea together. So at the end of the day, don't forget where you come from. You know what I mean? Cherish those memories and always put back.
Do you remember your first game?
I remember a lot of my footy. My parent told me a story of me running on, and I'm running off because I was 2 years young, and they said I got scared. I think I ran on. I was about 6 years old in under 8s running.
You weren't
9s.
ready.
I wasn't ready, yeah. And so they waited the next year, and then I came on and played there, yeah. But we used to play against your Walgetts and your Burkes and your Cobars and your Ningans.
So fair away
So
trips.
every trip was 2 hours away or whatever, and you drive there. And of course, we were young. We were probably the first team played or whatever. So we'd meet in the morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock, jump in cars. And not all parents had cars, so we'd throw in different players in cars and just get us there. But that's the community spirit that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't change a thing. And, I'm friends with every single one of them fellas in that photo, if they haven't passed.
Escape the city and discover the magic of the Hunter Valley with HV Tours. From world-class wineries and craft breweries to gourmet food, cheese, chocolate, gin and breathtaking views. This is more than a tour, it's an experience. Small groups, relaxed vibes, local guides and unforgettable memories, all without the stress of driving. Whether it's a romantic getaway, birthday celebration, Hens Weekend or just a day out with friends, Hunter Valley Tours delivers the ultimate wine country experience. Book your next escape now at HV Tours and let the good times roll. If you're chasing one of Newcastle's best craft beers, make your next stop Good Folk Brewing in Beaumont Street, Hamilton. Good Folk is all about brewing fresh, full-flavoured craft beers with character. Whether you're into crisp lagers, happy IPAs, smooth pale ales, or something a little different, they've got the brew for you. Grab your mates, settle in for a tasting paddle or a pint, and enjoy the relaxed atmosphere that's made Good Folk a local favourite. Great beer, great people, and great times. That's Good Folk Brewing, right in the heart of Hamilton. Are you looking to add just a little bit more spark to your relationship, or is it about just treating yourself? Then it's time to visit Confessions Boutique. With a huge range of premium and intimate adult products, romantic gifts and expert advice in a relaxed, judgment-free environment, then Confessions Boutique is just the place. Whether you're shopping solo or as a couple, you'll be welcomed by friendly staff who know their stuff. So if you're ready to spice things up, then head to Confessions Boutique at Charlestown, because life's too short for boring nights.
Just getting back onto, I know we couldn't find the pictures, they're somewhere there, but the athleticism in rugby league these days, you see these massive wingers. Now, you were a winger. How would you feel about now, these days, coming up against some of those guys that look like they could be in the front row?
That's right. I debuted at 78 kilos.
Wow.
So you wouldn't play me in first grade with 78 kilos.
Because there was a rule, wasn't it? You had to be a certain weight?
I had to be 84 to as a target in the off season.
Yep.
For me to get a debut game. And you probably heard the story of how I got to 84 kilos.
Well, tell it again.
Well, I think I got to 81, 82, and 88 to 84. And as a child growing up in Barorona, we used to always burn lead and, put patterns in the ground and pour the lead into a liquid, and make shapes. So I had an affiliation with playing with lead a lot. So I knew where the lead was when I was at home on the roof and whatever, the fascia. And so I rolled a little bit up and put it down my undies, and I became 84 kilos from doing that. And I was able to reach my target, and I was able to debut the next game.
Wow. But just this, did you struggle when retirement came? Because I know there's a lot of horror stories, and probably more. It leads me to probably more head knocks. Did you have much concussion in your days?
No. For me, being a winger, but I played a lot of fullback in my early career. I was actually 5'8" from my juniors, but thankfully I didn't get a lot of head knocks. But and in regard to after footy, I was probably grateful that the fun factor was out of it. I didn't enjoy it as much. You know what I mean? So I was fine to walk away, and I kept tearing my hamstrings. So walking away wasn't too bad.
You see someone like Kalen Ponga that just gets so many head knocks. Do you worry about people like him?
I think surely the medical experts, and even you're talking about the runner here, he's a great bloke. They, due diligence, and they got to do the right thing by the players these days.
Yeah.
And mate, I remember our doctor at the Knights. He's still one of my close friends too, Dr. McGee. And it's sad to see that people can be blaming others for concussions and going back on the field and all the rest of it. But I hope that people recognise that the players in our day always wanted to stay on the field. It was like a rule that you had to stay on the field. You know what I mean? So players always pushed each other, and there was a responsibility for yourself to stay on the field, get up and show a face in the line. So sadly, you have to take that away from players. So it's good in the current game now where you got a doc there on the sideline. You got your club doc, and they see something. So the players today should be better looked after than ever before.
I remember with NBN, I did a series on mental health, and one part of it was head knocks, concussion, CTE. There was a fellow by the name of David Howell. He was a local rugby league legend for Western Suburbs. He was a captain coach. He won premierships in the 70s, early 80s. And you could tell, he was getting monitored, for dementia. And it was obviously from the head knocks. And I mentioned to him, I said, David, how many concussions would you get in a season? And he said, Michael, I'd get 2 or 3 in a game. You just stayed out there. And I went, wow, and the thing is too, is that he also said, he goes, and back then he said, after the game, it was like a culture, we go back to the club and drink till midnight, which is the worst thing you can do after you get a head injury.
It's bleeding.
But it was just, that culture of club footy back then, that at the time they didn't have the experts to tell them, no, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. No, it's amazing listening to those stories of, and he would have played with Alan Dagwell, who was one of my coaches in Newcastle rep sides under 14s, I think. And to hear some of his stories, and I love hearing some of them old stories, but how our times have changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the current players just got to recognise that their welfare is the priority, and the game has changed to the point where it's nothing like the old days. Yeah. And so it shouldn't. Our young kids should be able to enjoy footy as well and not have any long-term injuries when they finish.
I also mentioned to David, I think it was the last thing I said to him, I said, if you knew what you have now back then, would you still do this? He went, absolutely. I loved every minute of it. And he could recite every game, but he couldn't remember where he lived, which was just around the corner.
Ray Price would say the same. You know what I mean? Like, they were true warriors. They played the game, on their hearts more than most players. Like, you look at and hear those stories, and they're amazing. But again, we do have to change the mindset of the current player. You know what I mean? Because our children learn from what they see on the telly, and we have to make sure our game's safe. Yeah. So everything we've done and changed is only for the better of the game.
I've got to mention Derek McVeigh. He was a Cardiff Cobra, and he said, mate, he goes, I played a few years above him, but actually was a bloody good player. What do you love about Derek?
Yeah, Deck was someone I always watched after we finished playing there at Cardiff. So I played on the same field. And one thing I'll say about Derek is our first year together in the Knights 21s, he was the number one player for me to follow. He helped me a lot scoring tries because he had a really strong attacking mindset. So Decker would always get an offload. He'd always look for weaknesses. So it was a good forward to follow.
One thing, when he was playing for Balmain, it was almost like, if you look through all these first grade games, and the thing was, he was at a club that had just a brilliant pack of forwards, Roach, Ciro, but whenever he played, 9 times out of 10 they won the game.
Yeah. I think he just had to find a team that fits the style of play that Decker is. Yeah. So he wasn't going to go out, and a bit like myself, I suppose, not going to tackle 30, 40 players. Yep. But his run meters would be good. His offloads, his ability to find space and put smaller players through holes. There was a special talent there that he hid. But like I said, he was in a front rower's body though, and I suppose they want him to play more like a front rower, where Deck probably played more like a six.
Well, do you know? He actually told a story where he's managing one of the pubs in Newcastle, and it was sponsored by the rugby. They sponsored the Newcastle University Rugby Union Club. And they said, Decker, you want to come and have a run? He went, oh, don't be stupid, I'm too old, So they threw him some boots, and next thing you know, he goes, I'm the captain coach of the third grade. He said, I'm playing 5'8". He goes, I'm just standing in the middle, catching and passing. I've got reindeers running off me. He said, and I was playing this style that was not traditional rugby union, and we lost the first few games, and they were more or less saying, Decker, you're going to have to change it back to the way we play rugby union. He goes, give us one more game. He said, everything clicked. He said, we went all the way through and won the grand final.
Yeah, no, he's a different different footballer, but yeah, definitely he's a front row and a 5'8" body.
You were the first player contracted, the first signing for the Newcastle Knights before the inception into the NRL. Do you remember that day?
I remember coming into the Newcastle Leagues Club to sign the contract, and then the significant moment of that was congratulations, you're now the first signing. And they gave me an iron-on transfer of the Knights logo. So I could go home and iron it onto a T-shirt. So you remember those iron-on transfers? So that's why it stands out of me giving my... And that was the first night sort of memorabilia. Like, we didn't have anything back then, but we had these Knights iron-on things, so they'd expect people to put it on their T-shirts, and all of a sudden it's a Knights T-shirt. But they gave me that. And only funny enough, when my mum and dad passed away, they kept a big box of my old newspaper clippings and my athletics ribbons and certificates that I'd won and stuff like that, and I found my old Knights contract.
Wow! Because that first contract was a 3-year deal. First year 10,000, the second year 25,000, the third year 35. Mate, you would have been feeling like a gangster back then.
Yeah. Well, that contract still nothing like today.
Yeah.
But back then that was good money, and. Like I said, I didn't want to leave. I had offers to go. I remember in under 15s, I made Australian schoolboys, and I was nearly close to going to Parramatta, St George, and then Penrith. So they were all looking for me to go down that way. But my parents said, stay and do your 11 and 12 here at Cardiff High, and then we'll decide then what you do after you finish year 12. But I was fortunate enough that at the end of year 12, the Knights came in. So very lucky.
You were playing the year before. You were playing for South Newcastle. I mean, how old were you when you were playing first grade there?
17. I debuted, and then I played. Then I turned 18. But I was in year 12 at Cardiff High. So that was really helpful for me because they did pay. I think it was only $150, $300 a win. You know what I mean? And but the money for me back then, at school was awesome. So, and I played with some special people there. You're talking about people who mould your type of footy. I remember. Richard Jones was a quality player that I learned a lot from, and he taught me about how close the 1, the fullback, and the 12 has to have that relationship and connection through the middle of the ruck. So he taught me a lot about playing with the hooker, the fullback.
Yeah.
So, and it worked.
I mean, just with that, you mentioned at the start of this podcast that, especially with Central Charlestown, when someone's ready. At that age, did you feel you were ready to play first grade for South Newcastle at that age?
Not a clue. No, not a clue. I had 1 year in under 18s because, and then they saw me play there as a 17-year-old, and then they asked me, and Ken Shine. So I got a, God bless him, he just passed, but I know that Ken Shine saw me and gave me the opportunity to play first grade. So back then there was third grade and reserve grade. So for him to say, no, you're in my team, you're in first grade, that puts a lot of belief, in yourself. And I'm always going to learn more playing with better players. Yeah. So I've got to really thank the coaches before me who saw something, because if I didn't play with those better players, there's no learning, or your learning's a lot slower. So I was grateful to play with quality players like your Richard Jones and your Merlots and your Johnny Crooks and blokes like that who were good players for me back at the time to learn from.
Absolutely. I mean, just getting back to that first year of the Knights, real exciting times, wasn't it? Getting a team into the NRL. You played the full season under 21s, was it? And then did you always knew you were never going to go straight into first?
No, they told me all the way along about that I wouldn't be straight in because I wasn't big enough. So Robert Finch, again, another role model of mine who looked after us in the 21s, and he taught me a lot about, being patient, because obviously you felt like you could do it and you're there, but we it's not that simple just throwing someone straight in. But Robert Finch was really good. David Waite was our reserve grade coach. Yep. And Alec McMahon. So they were very good for me. And then Alan Bell, our assistant coach, I'm still seeing Belly. I go to every birthday party of his. He's a really good friend of mine. So believe me when I say the people who've played a role in my career, I'm still friends with. I still appreciate what they've done for me.
Just with Alan McMahon, I mean, the first Knights coach, I mean, was he the sort of bloke that was obviously coaching first grade, but he looked at all the grades, Did he ever give you some advice when you were in the lower grades?
Yeah, I knew what I had to work on, and I knew what first grade was all about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there were some individual tuitions and videos to watch, but also players to watch. You know what I mean? So I knew that, and I kind of had to tweak parts of my game to suit first grade. which most players would anyway. But I think the biggest thing for me was being patient, getting my body right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you can't just play one game. You've got to be able to play each game. Each game was going to be physical. You know, it was playing against bigger bodies, and they had to get me ready to be able to handle that week in, week out.
You one thing you would have got used to is big crowds, because I remember back then, under 21s, but even reserve grade, the place was packed just to watch a reserve grade game.
Yeah, and even though we believe they fudged the statistics, there was probably more people in there than what's in recorded. So we were spoiled. Like, to come out and play club footy with 30,000.
Yeah.
You know, the Knights these days are still only playing in front of 20. You know, and if they get a good night, it's probably max 25, 26 now in the stadium.
Yep.
You know, I remember playing 30,000 regularly at our home games, because you can all stand and sit, because the hill, you know, was all around the field, and we could fit more people in. But we were spoilt back in the day.
1990, you were the Dally M Winger of the Year, the very first night to win a Dally M. And I'll just read this, the team, the Dally M team of that year. You got fullback Gary Belcher, centre Mal Meninga, 5'8" Cliff Lyons, obviously yourself at winger, halfback Ricky Stewart, lock Bradley Clyde, second rower Paul Sirenen, prop Martin Bella, hooker Kieran Walters, coach Tim Sheens. That's pretty illustrious company, Ad.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Like I said, as in I don't know if it's ever recorded. I didn't, but there's some special players there, and I got to catch up with Mal Meninga that night, compare eyebrows. But yeah, it was a surprising sort of win. I was, like I said, I was always hoping I'd get that award.
Did you think you'd win it?
Well, I also got a Dally M highest try scorer. So maybe the try scorer helped me.
Got you
so I got 2 Dally M's that night.
Wow. And you also, I mean, you played fullback as well. Did you like that better? Because what we mentioned before, you used to be able to roam and do your own thing at fullback, where on the wing you were sort of a bit more, obviously, restrained there.
I enjoyed the fullback when we had the run in 1990. So I played a lot of fullback that year when we made the semis or the playoff. And but I don't mind winger if you're getting plenty of footy.
Yeah.
You know, and people not only passing, but they're kicking the ball to you for bombs and so on. So I did like to be involved, but I did like going for a snoop. So I'd always regularly run to the middle of the field trying to find space and follow up people. So I wasn't your typical winger who would just walk down the tram lines all game. I don't like wingers who do that. If you can score a try in the middle of the field, then you're a decent winger.
Yeah. And you also had a massive pack of forwards in front of you, which also helps, doesn't it, when you've got someone laying the foundations like that?
I always said I had the best seat in the house, watching those forwards bash each other. And, you know, I mean, we were a very physical team, so I know that from day dot that, you know, we were told we wanted to be the player that everybody wanted to play with. And for forwards, that just meant, you know, I had to be forwards. I'm not talking about me, how physical they were, but, you know, defensively we had to be very good, because we may not have had the best attack. Yeah. So we had to rely on something else. And I think defensively, you know, teams didn't like playing against us, and particularly when they played us at home, we never got flogged.
Yeah, yeah. Just your first grade debut, it was against Balmain at home, round 17. Gary Worth was injured. You shitting yourself?
I'd played reserve grade, which is great back in them days. So I just finished, come back, sit on the bench. And so when they turn around and just say, Ash, you're on, you don't have time to shit yourself. So I did go on. One of the biggest surprises of going on is how much the forwards ripped into me about talking. So I had to really get into the role of telling players where to go and what to do. And so I was I won't say aggressively, but I was very assertively told that I needed to talk up. So I had to learn really quick with this forward pack.
It's the old Marathon Stadium, that gold grandstand. I know there are a lot of opposing players hated going there. Blocker Roach hated every time we played in Newcastle. There'd be an inch of water on the floor. It's like someone's come in with a hose the night before, and he goes, you could grow rice in there. It was, back in the days, it was almost like get every little advantage you could from a team coming up the road.
I had nothing to do with that, but it's a good ploy. But I remember, one thing I remember Blocker saying is our playoff game with the Tigers midweek was harder than any State of Origin game. It was just like a State of Origin game. Wow. You know, with our full pack. So for Blocker to say that, it must have been tough.
Yeah. And also, too, you know, you got so many highlights. I mean, you score 20 points in a match, a hat trick of tries, 4 out of 5 at goal, 20 points in the match. That's a record that stood for 8 years before Andrew Johns broke it.
Yeah, buddy Joey. No, it was always going to happen, but that's the joy of being involved in the club early on. There's records to be set. So, we always knew they were going to be broken because they were early on in our history. But there were some special games for me. I remember the Roosters here at home was a good one, and St George here at home. Funny enough, all my 3 tries that I scored were always at home. Must have been the crowd.
We've got some vision. This is the Nissan Sevens.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Now, we'll set the tone. So this is the final. You're playing St George, 1991. Now, this is a 7-a-side competition.
Yes.
You're 4 behind. Mark Glanville scores. It's 20 all. All of a sudden, you were up to take the kick, which wasn't just a normal kick. It was a drop goal in this tournament.
Our first trophy as MG.
People forget about that, don't they? This was the Knights' first trophy before the they won the grand final.
It was the first trophy we got. He only scored that because he had number 5 on his back. He had never scored as a 13.
Well, I think he was actually player of the match. He might have even been player of the series.
He got player of the series. He got player of the series.
In sevens.
He was super fit back in the day. Never passed the footy. Bit of a hog. So there was a reason why he probably scored a few tries. But the siren had already gone here, so I knew if I'd got it, we'd won. But all through the tournament, I was kicking them really well. And it didn't surprise me. It was a smaller ball. I found it a lot easier. I don't know why, but one thing that I reckon we don't do enough of is play a game called forcey backs. So all through my childhood was you got to drop kick the ball to get further down the field. Remember, if you catch it on the full, your person's opposing you. He punt kicks it, but most of the time you're not catching it on the full, and you're drop kicking it. So I can remember playing forcey backs, 10 years easily, and that was a lot of drop kicks. So I found drop kicks easy, and when the sevens rule came in, we had a drop kick. It didn't bother me.
You had a couple of years at Penrith, but it wasn't a great time, was it?
No, look, it was a club that was a bit fractioned at the time, and I think there was still some trauma around Ben Alexander's passing, and there was a lot of things going on, and as you know, a year or two later, Mark Geyer leaves to Balmain.
Yep.
You had Brandy going over to the Warriors. Right. You had Gaskell moving to Roosters and Freddie Fittler moving to the Roosters. So there was a lot of changes. So I didn't find that I was enjoying my footy as much. I did start tearing my hammies more, and there was pressure to get on the field and fix those injuries. I was living away from home. I was
about to say,
I was engaged. Yeah, I was engaged to be married.
Yeah.
That could have been all played a role, but I know that we hit the ground running in the trial game, and then once myself and Brandy got injured, we started poorly, and we just didn't pick up the pieces from there.
Yeah. What do the Knights mean to you to this day?
I think they've allowed me an opportunity to do everything that I'm doing now that I love, which is, getting a platform and a voice and opportunity to make change. It doesn't matter what that's from, whether it's for Aboriginal people or it's to educate non-Aboriginal people, or whether it's talk footy. Yep. Even a few weeks ago, I went over to talk to the junior Knights about the influences and the challenges they're going to face, that the reasons why they're not going to make it, being realistic about their challenges ahead. So, I wouldn't have those opportunities if they didn't give me that. So, and everywhere I go around Australia, if I go to a community, I'm always that Knights player. So it's a label that's given to you whether you like it or not. And that's what I say to the modern player, just embrace it and then have some responsibility to give back.
Now, this episode of Incredible Lives is brought to you by Purnell Trophies in Broadmeadow. Let's face it, everyone loves winning something, whether it's Best of Fairest Employee of the Month, Trivia Champion, or even the most likely to be sin-binned the most times in the season. Every legend deserves a trophy. That's where Purnell Trophies comes in. They can help with trophies, medals, plaques, custom engraving and awards for sporting clubs, schools, business and community groups. So before your next presentation or grand final or awards night, get in touch with the team at Purnell Trophies in Broadmeadow and tell them Cainey sent you. And on behalf of Purnell Trophies, there you go. Just another one to put on the next to the Dally M.
I'll put that next to the Dally M. Thanks for having me.
Ashley Gordon, thanks for being on Incredible Lives with Cainey. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you've had an incredible life.
No probs. Anytime.
Thanks, mate.